بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلله فلا هادي له ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن سيدنا ومولانا وحبيبنا وشفيعنا وعزيزنا وكريمنا ورحيمنا ونبينا وسندنا محمد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. Amma ba'd. Can you guys, I know there's a thing that's happening in the back, but can you guys hear me over there? If you can't hear me at any time, just raise your hand for a quick second and I'll get an idea. From next time, inshallah, we should have a mic. And if anyone needs chairs or anything, just let us know. So today's discussion is it's gonna be tiered on about 5 topics or 5 points. So I'm gonna talk a little bit about each point and then I'm gonna shift over. You have a choice of either stopping me at that point and being like, hey, we have a further question, clarification, we have a thought, we want to add on something. You're more than welcome. This is your home. Or you can wait till the end when we have Q&A. Either or is fine. You can stop me in between as well. That's fine as well. Before I start, I have a few things that I jotted down to keep in my mind. Is there a particular thing that you want to hear about today? Just in case if I miss it. That a certain thing about relationships that is not spoken about or a particular aspect of it that you want to hear about. Anyone?
Do you think relationships, you mean all relationships, or you mean specifically?
No. I mean the Bay type one.
Okay.
He was like, no, that's it. He's like, that's...
Are you going to cover, like, when we ourselves, like, know we're kind of, like, ready for start looking for marriage?
Okay. How do you know you're ready for marriage? Anyone else? From that side? From the sister side? Brothers? No? Okay. The first question that he asked was that, how do you know you're ready for marriage? So one thing is, marriage is either going to be fard on you, meaning it's compulsory like prayer. Marriage is either going to be sunnah on you, which is that it is good for you to do it. Or marriage is going to be haram on you. It's haram for you to get married. Did you know that there were 3 tiers for marriage? No? Okay, there's 3 tiers. The first one is when marriage is fard on you. When you have to get married. Meaning that you have no choice and you need to start working towards getting married. And by you delaying marriage, you are held accountable by Allah the way you would delay prayer. Okay? It is a situation when a person is unable to control their sexual desires and they are going to fall into zina, or they are falling into zina, or at a lesser degree they have a chronic habitual masturbation problem, pornography problem, and they're addicted to it, where that person no longer can control it and it would lead them to zina. At this point, it is fard and compulsory for you to get married. When you can't preserve your iman or your faith any longer, then it is compulsory for you to get married. Now, that compulsory comes under the condition that that there are 2 conditions that are found. Number 1 is that obviously you have the desire, right? The drive, the ability to fulfill the obligation of marriage. That's the first thing. The second thing is you have the financial ability to also take care of marriage as well. So if you have both of these things, then and only at that time, it's fard on you and you have to get married. That's the first thing. The second scenario, the second situation is where it is sunnah for you to get married. Okay? By the way, in the books of, does anybody speak Arabic over here? Tawqan. What does tawqan mean? Yeah. I hope nobody gets offended by this joke of mine, because this actually happened in our class. So when you're studying fiqh in Arabic, they write You know, al-jama' bain al-salatayn inda Shafi'i. The word inda means according to, right? And it also literally means by, or when the situation is present. So generally in fiqh books it would say that, combining prayers, this is inda Shafi'i, or inda Abi Hanifa, or inda. So in the books of fiqh it's written, al-nikah wajibun inda tawqan. The nikah is wajib inda tawqan. So the student who doesn't really know Islamic science as well, they translate it as nikah is wajib according to Imam Tawqan rahmatullahi alayh. But tawqan in Arabic literally means the situation I explained before, where a person does not have the ability to control themselves. It's a lot more funnier if you know Arabic and you're studying fiqh. I just realized that joke didn't land at all. But anyway, yeah, like that joke kills in madrasas. Like it's over and over again. But you guys were a tough crowd for that joke. Even the Arabs didn't get it. So that's the first situation. The second situation is when nikah is sunnah on you. Nikah is sunnah on you when you have the financial means and you have the ability to fulfill, you have the drive, and you can do both of these things, it is sunnah for you. And nikah becomes haram on you when there are one of two situations. Number one is you don't have the drive for it. You are not able to fulfill marriage. I had a situation recently where I think I spoke about it earlier, a few weeks ago, where there was a couple and one of the husband was caught cheating, and they got kids your age, so they reached out, and when I was speaking to the husband and the wife, they hadn't had intimacy for about 3 years. So now, obviously, the person is going to cheat. They're obviously going to make mistakes, right? So I told the couple, I said that she wanted a divorce, he didn't want to give it. So I told the guy, I said, if you are unable to, because the wife was like, I'm always there, he's never present. I've tried and he's never present. And this is her right. We're going to talk about this in the rights. And I said to him, and this is in the books of fiqh, that if a person fails or denies establishing marital relationship with their spouse, then that nikah can be terminated even without divorce. Because that's a right of nikah. That's an It's a different choice if you forego it and you say, I'm not interested in it, I don't care about it. That's a separate discussion. But the ability and the fulfillment of it, this is really important, because when we talk about contraceptives and all of these things, this is a very important point. The main purpose and the institution of nikah is what? What's the main fundamental purpose? The biological purpose and the spiritual purpose. What's the biological purpose of marriage? Procreate. That is also the spiritual benefit too. I was once in Azadville. It's a town in South Africa. And there was this great hadith scholar, Sheikh Muhammad bin Muhammad Awama. He's still alive. He's the greatest hadith scholar alive. He lives in Medina. Legend of a man. And he was giving a lecture to scholars. So I snuck in, or I think I was a graduate by then, and it was like this exclusive discussion. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, what gems is this giant hadith scholar going to drop? And he said one hadith, and he spoke on it, and that's all he said. And it was this hadith, where the Prophet ﷺ said, Inni mukathirum bikum al-umam yawm tazawwajul wadud al-walud. O people, when you marry and find two qualities. Al-wadud, someone who's compassionate, someone who's caring. And al-walud, someone who wants to have children, and who wants to have a lot of children. In Pakistan, they have hamdo, hamare do, chota khandan, zindagi asan. Right? Smaller families. But the Prophet ﷺ says, have more children, because on the day of judgment, I will boast of having the largest ummah. So that in itself has its own reward and has its own blessings, right? And in America, you're like, oh my God, no. 1 kid, 2 kids, that's it. Maybe, right? I'll just have an online Bitmoji kid. I don't even want to have real kids anymore. So there's this feeling of kids being this drain, right? But subhanAllah, they're the greatest blessings, and they're the whole purpose and the institution of marriage. So that's the first thing. Also, nikah becomes haram if you have an abusive problem or you cannot fulfill the rights of your spouse. If you have an abusive problem and you don't have the temperament for nikah, then it is haram on you to get married, because you're putting someone else's life in hell. People say, "Bache ki shadi kar do, sudhar jayega." Get him married, he'll become fine. No, he's gonna make someone else's life hell too. My God, she got caught with the boy. She needs to get married to a guy, but just not the guy she was talking to. What's wrong with that guy? No. This is haram. We will find her cousin from Rawalpindi, and you guys shouldn't be laughing about cousins. You're lucky if you have cousins as backups. I'm just joking. I'm joking. It's not that bad. But go ahead. You're good. If you guys need more chairs, there's some chairs here. They're in the back. So that's the first thing, okay? Another reason that marriage can be terminated, right? Marriage can be terminated in one of three ways. Number one, the man gives a divorce. He equates a divorce. Number two, the wife asks for a khula. And number three, the nikah is terminated, is dissolved by a third party. Generally, it can only be done by an Islamic judge in a Muslim country, but in a non-Muslim country like our country, a group of muftis can do it. Your local imam can't. You can't go to your local imam and be like, oh, Imam Nadeem, I know you really like, what's his favorite football team or basketball team? Cowboys and Mavs. I know you like Mavs. Here's a Mavs jersey for you. Can I get this nikah dissolved? I like this person. No, you can't. It doesn't work. It has to be a council of them. And one of the reasons that nikah can be dissolved is if you have a chronic sickness that the wife is not able to gain proximity to the husband, or you have a drug abuse problem. A drug abuse problem, if a sister comes and says, my husband has an alcohol or a drug addiction, it is grounds enough, if that person is not on a path of stopping, to dissolve their nikah despite them not willing to or wanting to. Are you guys following? Okay. The reason I'm saying these things is so you understand, if you know what you can do in nikah, and if you're still doing it, you need to fix it right now. Okay. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is what should you look for in nikah? What's the famous hadith about what you should look for in a marriage? Does anyone know?
Muslim? I'm assuming, I'm guessing.
Muslim, good. Okay. Do you need a chair?
No, I'm good. I'm stand. But wealth, and then beauty, and then I forgot the last one.
So deen, right? And then it's wealth, beauty, and what's the last one? Does anyone know? No? Lineage. Yeah, you guys are. What am I giving this lecture if no one's ready for the marriage discussion? You don't even know the basic hadith. 4 things, right? In America, you don't have this issue. Anybody from England over here? No, or lived in England or has family in England? Is everybody you know in Dallas, between the borders of Collin County? Is that it?
No, they're all over the U.S.
Hey, where?
They're all over the U.S.
All over the U.S.? Okay, so England is pretty racist, which hasn't changed over the last few hundred years, right? They've kind of kept that consistent. Even the Muslims that are in England, I was so surprised when someone was like, oh, Mufti Wasim, if you know somebody in America, I want them to be from Gujarat, but just not from Gujarat, they have to be from Surat, and just not from Surat, they have to... I'm like, my God, I didn't even know half these towns existed. And they want a very particular part that, it just can't be from my city. It has to be from my town. Can't be from my town. It has to be from my village. Can't be from my village. Has to be from my street. Can't be between my street. It has to be between the first and second floor of our apartment. Basically your cousin, right? Goes back to the cousin discussion. I'm not hurt about it or anything. I'm just calling up the blessing as it is. So anyway, there are 4 things the Prophet ﷺ says to look for, right? The first thing is, and that's what everyone looks for, Jamal, beauty. That's like, we live in this era. Even your marriage apps is straight up swipe right, swipe left. Your Tinder just became Minder, got sued, and became Salam after that. Right, but the concept is what? Just Jamal. How does she look? How does he look? How thick is his hair? That hair's gonna go. How long are you gonna hold on to it? When my my mom had a brutal... this is being recorded, but my mom had a challenging time when she, first got married, and my dad was bald, and my aunt just kept on telling my mom, when he got married to you, he had hair. After getting married to you, he lost his hair. He got married to you, we gave you our brother with hair, and you gave us our brother back without hair. And finally, one day, my mom was like, yeah, I ate all of his hair. What else do you want me to say to you? And after that day, she's never said anything. So the beauty she has, right? The beauty she has, that'll disappear as well. How long does good skin last? Bro, it barely lasts in your 18, 19. Y'all are sitting there like kicking your faces up with like avocados and watermelons and all of the fruits and plants that there is. You're trying to preserve skin at 17, 18, 19. People ask me, what's your skin routine? Well, I don't know if they're messing with me or trolling me or what they're doing. I've never put anything on my face. But there's only one thing that I did. نَظَرَ اللَّهُ إِمْرَأً سَمِّعَ مَقَالَتِ فَأَوْعَاهَا. Rasulullah ﷺ said, if you want to look fresh and you want to look young, do one thing and Allah will preserve you. May Allah, this is the Prophet's dua, amongst his final du'as, may Allah keep that person looking clean and fresh, who hears my words, preserves it, and then shares it with somebody else. Imam Shafi'i rahmatullah alayhi was 60 years old, not a single white hair. He was asked, what's your secret? He said, I remembered Allah in my youth, Allah remembered me in my old age. Anyway, beauty, right? So the Prophet tells us beauty is important though. It should also not be like, I just want to see her eyes and that's it, and inshallah it'll be okay. I don't care who he is, I just care about if he's a doctor. No. Look at the person. The one time the Prophet ﷺ was encouraging people to get married, and one Sahabi got super excited, right? He's like, by nightfall I'm getting married. He went, found the first sister that said, I do. Went to her and he was like, I want to marry you. And she says, okay. Comes back to the Prophet ﷺ. He's like, Ya Rasulullah, you said to get married. I'm married. And the Prophet's like, dude, did you even see the girl? He's like, no. But you said get married. I hopped onto it. And the Prophet ﷺ said, don't do that. Make sure you look at them. Make sure you look at them. Because the Ansari women have something in their eyes. Their eyes were blue. And blue eyes was considered a defect or not as attractive. You guys are probably like, oh my God, blue eyes. But to them, it was like not the most beautiful thing. So looks are important. But looks, and a simple bar that I give people is that if this is the person you want to wake up next to every single day for the rest of your life, and you have that much attraction to them, that's sufficient. When you're 18, 19, you want green eyes, blonde hair, tan skin. When you get much older, you're just going to want eyes, hair, and skin. All of those things are going to evaporate and move away from you. All of those opinions are going to go away. So beauty doesn't last. It's transitory. So the Prophet ﷺ says, don't invest in it. Enough so it's attractive for you. So you're into her. You're not cheating. Right? That also is very important. Like, you have to be into the person. Like, you can't just be like, but my dad said so. My parents are going to be happy. Yeah, but you'll be unhappy. And then your parents are going to be like, Beta, why are you unhappy? And then they'll be unhappy. Right? People who marry for their parents all the time, it's the same story. Illa mashallah. I've seen very few people actually rock a marriage because their parents said it and actually earn dua out of it. Most people mess up. Most people are like, okay, I'll do it because my parents said so. And your parents, they're like, I don't want to make my parents angry. Then they get divorced and then their parents get angry. They're like, you ruined our name. And I'm like, wait, why didn't you just stop this earlier? They're like, yeah, I was having doubts 2 weeks before the wedding, but what would we have said? I was like, no, that's what you should have said, not waited like 2-3 years later. So that's the first thing, right? Enough beauty to have attraction. The second thing is wealth. It's important to have stability. But if you're going to marry someone just to milk them, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala won't put barakah in that wealth. And it happens. It happens both ways, not just like one way. You find guys who are like, yeah, you know what? I don't really care how she's got money, so I'm going to marry her. Because that's what they care about. And the second is that, how many alphabets does he have after his names? M, B, B, S, M, D, this letter, that letter. He can be a doctor and still not spend $1 on you. One thing Dallas taught me is that you can have all the money in the world and still be a bakhil. I've seen masjids with millions and still be like, we have no money. Like, I've seen, Dallas has taught me that you can have hundreds and thousands in your account and still not buy new clothes for your kids on Eid. I've seen people who have money upon money who haven't done anything. So what's the point of it? What's the point of all of it if that person won't even spend on you? People who are like, oh, I got married to him because he came from a good family, but he's bakhil as anything. So wealth, instead of marrying someone who is wealthy, marry someone who is generous. Woman and man. If you have a generous heart, you're always content. Because the generous one gives when they're happy. But if you don't have a generous heart and you're stingy, that means you're ungrateful. Because you're constantly collecting and it's still not enough for you. And you're not spending on anyone. We all have that one relative that loves their money. And that's all they talk about, but they never spend a dime of it. And all they get out of it is that I have this much or I have that much or so on and so forth. The third thing is clout. Right? This isn't very common in our time. This is like in their time when you have like different statuses amongst people. People got married to a richer family or a higher class family so that they would have clout. Again, the Prophet ﷺ said, you're not marrying that person for them. So the Prophet ﷺ says, marry them for what? Deen, right? I'm going to unpack what it means because it just doesn't mean to pray 5 times a day. That's not what deen means. There's only 2 qualities or 3 qualities the Prophet ﷺ said you should look for. Number 1 is deen. Number 2 is compassion. And number 3 is walud, someone who's willing to have a big family. Now again, this isn't like a deal breaker. You shouldn't go and be like, I heard Mufti Wasim's lecture today. It's 10 or none, right? Like we have to revisit this whole discussion. No. You don't have to beat Yaqub alayhi salam. If someone is not willing for it or whatever, that's fine. That's between them or not. You don't just tick them off just because of this one thing. 3 qualities, right? Deen, compassion, and children. What does it mean by deen? By deen, it doesn't mean 5 times salah. Praying 5 times a day doesn't make you a practicing Muslim. That's the minimum Muslim. That's your minimum hours. 40 hours for full time is minimum. You can't be like, I'm going 40 hours. No. That's what you have to do. You're not doing anything extra. That doesn't make you practicing. We have become so non-practicing that the one who prays sister, I'm looking for a guy, Mufti Wasim, prays 3 to 4 times a day. I was like, what happened to the other? I was like, which one can you miss then? Like, does he get to choose, ask you every day? Like, how does it work, right? 5. If you tell him 3, he's going to go to 1. If you tell her, just, pray twice, she's going to pray none. Don't set the bar so low when you start off. This is a new, fresh start for you. Many of you are going to be married in the next few years. Maybe I'll be there for your weddings. Your life is about to restart in a few years or sooner. It's going to hit a refresh. This isn't your time to enjoy your youth. This is your time to all the mistakes I've made, put them behind me, let me move forward. Dude, I want a girl who also sparks up. I want a girl who smokes shisha. If your thoughts in the beginning are based on people who are just like your friend circle, then you're not growth. There's no growth that's happening from you. If you want, even the term that you use, right? I don't even want to say the word, but you all know what I'm saying, right? You don't call them goodies, right? You use a negative word. What is this? This is showing your preference. That this is what I'm looking for. So, by following deen, what it means is someone who has taqwa in their heart. What does it mean by taqwa? That when they hear Allah's name, that Allah said to do something, they do it. And when they hear Allah said don't do it, that's the end of the discussion. If that person has that quality in them, they're marriage material. They may miss their salahs, they may pray all their salahs. That's separate. That's a personal struggle. And you can work on that and all of that's there. But if they have everything, they have beard, they have everything, but they don't have taqwa in their heart, wallahi, they're nothing. And they're not the type of person Allah's telling you to marry, or the Prophet's telling you to marry. Because they have everything, they don't have Allah in their heart. And I don't know if you guys have ever seen this thing. You have a husband and a wife, right? The closer they will get is when they're searching for Allah together. And when they get Allah, that's when the closest they're going to be. And as much as they don't have Allah in their heart, that's how far they're going to be from each other. I got this from a meme, by the way. Now, okay, this is good Islamically. But practically, why is it important to have someone that has taqwa in their heart? Can someone tell me practically? I mean, you know you should marry someone who is good and has deen and all of that. But practically, why is it important? Okay. They can help you grow into a better Muslim. Good.
It'll be like your kids will turn out better.
Kids will turn out better? Debatable.
Or it will be
Oh, yeah.
please Allah.
Please Allah, okay. But I'm talking about a true, like, go ahead. They'll treat you well. I'll give you an example. Okay? You see your father-in-law come inside and be like, yeah, you know, you don't take care of my daughter, you don't do this, you don't do that. The one who has taqwa in his heart will say, the Prophet ﷺ said, لَيْسَ مِنَّا مَنْ لَمْ يَرْحَمْ صَغِيرَنَا وَلَمْ يُوَقِّرْ كَبِيرَنَا. He is not amongst us who doesn't show compassion to his youngsters and respect to his elders. He's not from us. He's not from the Muslims. And he will say, this is not my father, but he is like my father. Therefore, the way I will respect my father, I will respect him. That is taqwa. But the one whose mind is logical and critical will say, whoa, who the heck are you to talk to me like this? You don't have a right to speak to me in this manner. Do you know what your dad said to me? Your dad's never allowed home. You know what your mom said to me? That is where taqwa is needed. Because when a husband and a wife have dispute, there is no earthly creature that can convince your wife otherwise. And there's no earthly creature that can convince your husband otherwise. You know, they say that if you are in an argument with your elders, then think for, and you disagree with them, think for 5 seconds before you open your mouth and say something. Okay? So you don't like what I said? If you have a disagreement or something with your parent, your teacher, think 10 seconds before responding. Okay? And if you have a disagreement and you disagree with your wife, my brother, keep counting. So you can't convince the other person, right? That's the bottom line. But how do you rationally... You ever seen two people on complete opposite sides and get on a baseless argument completely? Sometimes I just like sitting and listening to the kids argue. So useless. One time I had two people argue. One guy was like, what is stronger, banks or technology? And these guys had a full-blown 30 minutes argument. And while I'm just sitting there the whole time, and that kid is getting sauced. He's like, they're like, no, technology is more important, this and that. And he's like, no, money is more important. And like, there's like 4 guys against him, and he's just getting hammered. And I'm just sitting, listening. At the end, they're like, Mufti Wasim, what do you think? So I gave my opinion. I thought money was more important. And they're all like, yeah. So the kid was like, dude, when I said it, you guys didn't listen. When he said it, you listened. And they were like, yeah, you sounded like an idiot when you were saying it. He said it more, he articulated himself better. So arguments are won by articulation. Who's able to speak louder? Who's able to articulate the point better? But true solutions of any problem can come if it is not biased. And that only occurs if you enter Allah into the equation. Because then it's not like what I think is right. What does Allah say? Should your mom and dad live with you or not? That's not a debate between you and me. What does Allah say? What does the Prophet say? Should you have, is she allowed to work or not? What does Allah say? What does the Quran Hadith say? You follow that, you won't have problems in your disagreements.
What does Allah say about the parent situation?
That should have been number 3. And I think we're still on number 1 right now. I'm going to get back to that one. Because I have a whole discussion on what are the rights of marriage. Are you guys following along or am I confusing you guys? We're good? Inshallah. Give them a nice 5-star rating. You can put Mufti Wasim's halakha made sense in the bottom of it on the Google review. Or that Dallas, what is that Facebook group called? Dallas Halal Restaurant Muslim. Whoever's on it, they can go comment on there. Okay. That number 2, compassion. Why is compassion important? Why is compassion such an important point? Anyone, you guys can chime in. Go ahead.
So I mean, it's a relationship. So you guys are just like not only help each other, to get close to Allah, but you're supposed to also I don't know, whatever you need, I'm here for you, and whatever I need, you're supposed to be there for me. It's it's a friendship.
Is that what compassion means? That whatever I'm there for, you're there for me, and when you need, I'm there for you. Is that compassion? How many of you agree that's compassion? Raise your hand if you agree that's compassion. Nobody? How many of you disagree that's compassion? Is there only one voter in this whole room? There's a reason why I don't consider that compassion. Because that's reciprocation. That means if you're good to me, I'm good to you. Compassion is فَبِمَا رَحْمَةٍ مِّنَ اللَّهِ لِنْتَ لَهُمْ وَلَوْ كُنْتَ فَضًّا غَلِيظَ الْقَلْبِ لَانْفَضُّوا مِنْ حَوْلِكَ. Compassion is that, Muhammad, they're spitting on your face, but you're doing dua for their forgiveness. That's compassion. Compassion, you see, I gave you 3 tiers, right? I said it's important to have a Muslim, someone that's righteous. Number 2, someone that is compassionate. Why is it like this tiered? The first tier is, what is your responsibility? If you want a clear-cut answer, Abdullah, is it the wife's responsibility to have the parents at home and serve them? The clear-cut answer is no. That is the fatwa. But compassion grows the taqwa. You see, that's why the Prophet, because you can't run a marriage with just fatwa. What I have to do, what you have to do. You can't run a marriage like this. You have to run a marriage on compassion. Otherwise, it's a transaction. Your day is Monday, my day is Tuesday. I have laundry duty, you have that duty. Then you're just living in a military school, boarding school at home. That's what you ended up in doing. But what does compassion mean? Compassion means I do things for others because I'm a good person. Despite whether they do something for me or not, whether they ridicule me, insult me, harm me, or they don't do anything for me. That is compassion. Not everyone can hold taqwa in their heart, because that is a byproduct of taqwa. The fatwa is the minimum, but the one who has taqwa in their heart will say, okay, this is what's right and wrong. This is what I should do. This is what will make Allah even more happy. Brother, you owe me $50, you should pay me back. But you know what? Allah likes the fact that I forgive you. Brother, it's yours. Do dua for me on the day of judgment. Are you following what I mean by compassion now? Okay. These are the qualities that I feel from the Quran and Hadith of Rasulullah ﷺ that a person should look for. Righteousness, and not just like if he goes to this halaqah or he's volunteering there or she's wearing this hijab or that. No. True righteousness, where they are cognizant of their Allah watching them. Okay? Because if a person if a person acts like their Allah is not watching you, my dear brother and sister, when they are away from your gaze, they will do all the wrong things you could never imagine. You know what no one told me at this age? I'm going to stop this recording. It's gone from the dua to stop simping to how to simp. Will be the segment of this lecture, inshallah. What can you do and what can't you do? Okay. The Quran and Hadith are generally very vague on these terms. They give you, they rely on your own heart and your intent on how you handle a situation. So, if you like someone, can you go to them directly and tell them you like them? Yes or no? Islamically.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, how do you handle someone that comes up to you and says to you, I want to marry you? I just heard a sister be like, oh my God. It's like it happens in her DMs all the time. But a woman came to the Prophet ﷺ, and she gets to the Prophet ﷺ. When the Prophet's sitting down, and she comes in front of the Prophet ﷺ, She says, Ya Rasulullah, I have gifted myself to you. Marry me. This is the Prophet. A pretty good looking guy too, right? So the Prophet ﷺ is just like, see, swipe right and left isn't the sunnah. Up and down. So the Prophet looks down and there's just like this awkward silence, right? And like one of the Sahaba came in clutch. He was like, Ya Rasulullah, if you're not interested, I'm down. And the Prophet was like, bet, bro, it's all you right there. And he gets up and he's like, and the hadith says he fixed his pajama and he was like, I'm ready. The Prophet's like, hold on, you got any money? He's like, I'm broke. And the Prophet's like, you got nothing for her? He's like, no. He's like, walau khatam min hadid? Not even a ring made out of metal from a 25-cent store? He's like, I got that. The Prophet's like, give that to her as meher. In one narration, he was like, do you have anything? He's like, I'm broke. The Prophet's like, you gotta have a little bit. He's like, no, Ya Rasulullah, I'm broke. He's like, you gotta have something. Ya Rasulullah, my bank account, 0.000. The Prophet's like, do you have any Quran memorized? He's like, yeah, I got like 10 juz. Then your meher and dowries, teach your wife 10 juz. And that became their dowry. So according to Imam Shafi'i, you can make that as meher, as a dowry. You can be like, I'm going to teach you Quran, or I'll teach you how to bungee jump, right? Whatever you're into. And that can be your meher. Imam Abu Hanifa was like, no. It has to be money. It has to be like something that's financially tangible. You can't be like, yo, I'm gonna give you my love as your meher, as your dowry. No, you should already be doing that stuff, right? It doesn't come in that manner. So this is interesting. This hadith, this single hadith, Imam Bukhari mentions over 20 times and extracts over 20 rulings from the same hadith. Over 20 rulings from the same hadith. This one hadith. It's a pretty awesome hadith. So, yeah, you can go and approach someone, but we're also not in 7th century Arabia. Right? So, like, there's this, you can't just go straight in and be like, I want to marry you. What's your dad's number? You're going to scare the girl. Right? Or if you go to him and be like, you know what, I want to marry you, he's going to get scared. Commitment, these kids can barely commit till the evening. Right? You tell them I want to marry you, they're going to get scared. So, to communicate with someone, to get to know them, is completely fine. To reach out to them, to message them, that's completely fine. What isn't fine is if you're messaging and reaching out to every brother in the community and every sister in the community for the sake of Allah. Right? That's not like, one of them got a hit, right? No, it doesn't work like that. So, one person that you find interest in, talk to them, try to communicate with them. Obviously, the younger you are, the communication is a lot more, it's less serious than when you're older. And that shows you if you're ready for marriage or not. If your communication is generally like how you would talk to your friends and like are just about, chill things and just talking for talking, then neither you're at the space of marriage or the position of marriage, but this is just a girlfriend that you have just Islamically made you feel like you're halal dating her. But this is not going anywhere. Because when you are talking to someone for marriage, then you have like these like legitimate questions that come up. And we'll go over that too. I should ask that. Questions for marriage. You'll ask, about income. You'll ask about savings. You'll ask about interests. You'll ask about things that upset them. You'll ask about how they handle situations. That's when you're interested by getting married. If it's just WYD or AO, it's not. Or you got streaks running with them. You're not. Your marriage is not going to have more barakah the longer your streak is. Right? It doesn't work like that. The moment you know that this person is someone that I want to get married to, that's when you have to pull away from them. Not get even more closer to them. Engagement is just their version of saying that don't cheat. That's it. Otherwise, engagement is no Islamic concept to it. It's Nikka. Up until Nikka, you can get married to anybody. Her relationship with you and his relationship with you is the same as it is with any random person. It makes no difference. So, you can communicate. The quality of the communication can measure, is this person, am I pursuing them truly for marriage, or is it just my drive that I'm trying to satisfy, right? Number 2. Sheikh Saadi says, "Jab कीचड़ होता है तो हाथी भी फिसल जाता है." When it's muddy, even an elephant slips. the longer you talk to someone, the more frequent you talk to someone, you're going to slip. It's going to happen. And if it doesn't happen, then I don't even know if you guys are like marriage material, right? If you're going to talk to someone for years and still not slip, either you're like Jesus or you're like on a different level or something. Like, it doesn't happen normally. Most people will slip. So you have to put in these bars for yourself, right? You have to put in these like restrictions for yourself. For example, and again, these are all like things that I suggest to other people. 10 p.m. At 10 p.m., when it gets night or after Isha, stop the conversation. The late night conversations are the dangerous conversations. Don't be like, oh no, but we just trying to hop on a quick dua together at the Hajj. He leads me, I say Ameen. She leads me, I say, No. Do that at Ishraq time or Awabin. There's other blessed times during the day or Jummah time or something. That's the first thing. The second thing is, the moment one of them starts slipping, the second one needs to move away. Meaning that if you see that the conversation's going south, take a step back. Hold them accountable. If you can't hold them accountable before marriage and not disobeying Allah, then you will have no control over that person after marriage when they disobey Allah. Because if they disobey Allah before marriage with you, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make them disobey Him against you in marriage, and the pain you will feel. Right now you don't feel the pain, it's because it's you. You're with the girl, you enjoy it. But once you're in marriage, everything goes in a turn. Allah says, Dhuntiqam. Allah says, I just wait and I give them time and I let things play out. This is the one you disobeyed me for? And you wanted this? Here, have it. This is going to be the source of your pain for the rest of your life. And how many people get married? I quote that story of myself in Uzbekistan all the time. Because it was just like such a vivid memory. I'm walking in Bukhara and there's this bride and there's this groom and their eyes are just locked in with each other. And there's this photographer and there's this like Maulana from India walking with me on his pan, right? Just chewing nonchalantly. And he's walking, he looks at them and he's like, you see them staring at each other? And I'm like, am I supposed to be like looking down? But yeah, go ahead. And he was like, yeah, they're going to be like at each other's throats in a few years. And he just kept on going. And he said it as a joke, but it got to me, right? Is because whenever I see people get divorced, it's probably not a very good question to ask people, but I ask, like, when did you fall out of love with them? When was the moment? What happened that this person who you loved so much, you ended up being like, nah, I don't want to ever see their face ever again. Like, what was that moment? So it all happens with the lack of barakah. So going back, wrap it up in the next 2-3 minutes. The communication. If you're meeting them outside, then that meeting should be in a public setting. It shouldn't be private. And it should be enough to get to know someone. If it turns into you just catching lunch and dinner, my dear brother, sister, you are dating. Call it halal, call it haram, go to Imam Shafi, go to Imam Hanbali, go to whatever Imam you want. It's dating. Say whatever you want, put it in whatever cloak you want. It is what it is. Because they are still not halal for you. And it takes moments to make a mistake. It's that moment where that hug happens or the kiss happens or the embrace happens. It's the moment. And then you can sit with the life of regret. Because one of two things is going to happen. You're either going to marry that person and keep that secret buried in your heart, knowing that you establish relationships with them before marriage, or you will marry someone else and you will carry the secret to your grave, begging Allah to forgive you and wishing Allah to forgive you. You don't know. So don't invest behind a person that may just be transitory for you. Because if you go about it haram, there's no way Allah's going to put barakah in it. Allah's not going to be like, yeah, I know you were chilling with shaitan, a little haram. Hey, it's okay, it's the boys. You know what? Give them a little bit of barakah right there. No. Like, Allah's going to be like, hey, you want it? Take it. Okay. The pain will come from this very source. And when you're at your weakest, when you have white hair, and you don't have the ability to move, and your children side with the mother, or the children side with the father. And at that time, you don't even remember the mistakes you've made. But you made the mistakes and you put the seed, and Allah grew that forest later on. So keep yourselves in check. Can you FaceTime them? Yeah, again, once in a while to get to know them, right? But once you have that connection, to grow that connection, no, then that's not okay. Lastly, Snapchat, right? I don't know what, in that 3 seconds, what barakah is going to come, what happiness, like what. A relationship that exists over 3-4 seconds is not a relationship that is going to exist in the long term. A relationship built on Snapchat over things that disappear, where we're trying to cover our tracks, and probably you're not the first one and you won't be the last one, is probably not a relationship you want to be invested in. If they can send you indecent stuff on Snap, they're doing it because they don't want a record. Means neither of you and neither of what has happened in the past or what may happen in the future. For you, it's at the moment, it's like, oh, I can't even remember those words that you guys use when you guys send each other Snap and solicit them from each other. Can't remember. But there's a certain phrase. I don't think anybody knows it here, but it's on the tip of my mind. I don't get these type of snaps, so I don't know these things. Hear it from you guys. But I saw it on a meme. A lot of my youth culture comes from memes. So anyway, keep yourself in check. Don't let it get haram. And the moment you feel it getting haram, add a third person. Third wheels are annoying, but third wheels keep it safe. Third wheels, like just the way in a car, if you have an extra wheel, you might get a flat tire, but the tire will replace it. You don't want to have a third wheel in your car. It just takes up space for no reason. Same way in a relationship. That when you're getting to know someone, yeah, third person, them knowing, it's annoying, parents, like it's annoying, but they keep it halal. They keep you in check. So inshallah, the next part, I was planning on finishing it up this week, but the discussion got long. Next week, we will cover 4 topics. The rights of spouses, how to solve difficulties, what questions should you ask, and the rules of divorce. Before we wrap up, if there's any questions, we'll take 2 or 3 questions, inshallah, and then we can do Isha after.
When you're talking to someone, when you're discussing your past, or like they ask questions about your past, what do you say or don't say?
So, the first thing is that should you ask someone about their past? That's the first question. The prophetic advice is you should not ask about people's past. That's the prophetic advice. How many girlfriends do you have? How many boyfriends do you have? What's your body count? All of that, no. That's the prophetic advice. There was a girl. She committed zina, adultery, and then she changed her life. She became really righteous, and she became very well known for her piety. So people started proposing to her, and every time a proposal came, her parents would be like, "Oh, our daughter." You know how parents like boosting their kids up. Right? My kid is like a hero. They're like the best, and they're the most amazing. They go home and they curse their kids off, but when they're in front of other people, they'll boost their kids up. So, what was I saying right before this? She changed her lifestyle. So every time someone came and said, your daughter, I want to marry her. Yeah. My daughter's great, amazing, everything. Oh yeah, by the way, she committed zina once. People were like, yo, what the heck? And they just turn away. So they went to Umar radiallahu anhu. They said, Amir al-Mu'mineen, we try to get our daughter married. Every person is so ready. But the moment we tell them she committed zina, that's when they leave. And Umar radiallahu anhu is like, are you nuts? Why would you uncover a sin that Allah has covered? He said, the next time you tell anybody your daughter did this, I'll whoop you myself. He's like, you're not supposed to go exposing. However, there are sisters and there are brothers who have protected themselves their entire life. And they want someone just like that. That is their right as well. It hurts when sisters come up and be like, I've kept myself safe my entire life. And then I got married and this guy cheated on me. We don't understand the mental effect of divorce and problems in marriage. You see, marriages don't become hell because of the good things that happen inside. They become hell because of the bad things that are handled incorrectly. That's how marriages become hell, because of the problems that are handled incorrectly. So if a person, or sister or brother, is in that level that, no, I want this, it's very simple to express that to the person. that, look, I don't want to know about your past, but I just want to say that if this is your past, I personally, this is a deal breaker for me and I'm not comfortable. And if that person is like someone who values the, then they'll be honest about it. If not, then a liar is a liar, right? That is just that is bad nasib. Fir'aun, the Asiya got married to Fir'aun. Bad nasib. It was just the nasib Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave her was a test. So that's my view and perspective on it. Anyone else?
There's a question right there.
Go ahead.
So before you mentioned that taqwa was one of the things that you should look at versus other things other acts that you could charity or volunteers or whatnot. How do you see that in considering you're not really supposed to that's something that you see over time and you're saying that you shouldn't prolong that unnecessarily. So how would you what are real life examples of what you could look for?
Very good. You guys all heard the question? So I didn't give a stipulated time, right? It's because that's different for everybody.
No, you did not.
This could be 2 months, 4 months, 6 months. Everyone is different. At their age, everyone is different, right? It just depends. So the way you measure someone's taqwa is on their choices when it comes between Allah and their nafs. What choice do they choose? When it comes between the choice of the nafs and the choice of what Allah wants, whether it's in marriage, whether it's in priorities, whether it's in lifestyle choices, what do they pick? If they care more about having fun or enjoying above what is right or wrong, then you already know that this person, to them, deen is secondary. Yes, they're trying to be good Muslims and they want to become better. All of that's there, but it's not their priority. Which means that push comes to shove, their priority is what makes me happy. And a person can only be in one of two states. What makes me happy? What makes Allah happy? If a person is focused on what makes me happy, they will sacrifice your happiness for their happiness. And that's how people cheat and do wrong things and abuse and all of those things. If a person says what makes Allah happy, they will sacrifice their happiness for your happiness. And those are the people that will not harm and they will not do something wrong and they will not oppress your rights and they will not do wrong to you. Does that make sense? Yes? No?
Yes.
I can't tell people's facial expressions with masks on, so to rely on head nods. Anyone else? Any other questions?
I guess on average, once you get to know someone, how long should you continue doing that? Getting to know someone.
If I'm being super honest with you, for your age group, what I would advise for you guys are all between 18 to 20, right? For your age group, I genuinely advise that the moment you connect with someone, get your nikah done. Get rukhsati after graduation. Normalize getting nikah done while you're in college because nothing protects you than a marriage. In a relation, if you're able to fulfill the obligations and all the other criteria I said, but go for that first. I strongly advise that if you feel that this is the person, because then you have a reason to invest behind them as well, right? At the same time, rukhsati didn't take place, meaning that you're not living together with each other. So in the worst case scenario, if it was a bad decision, there isn't, the damage is reduced. And if it works out, alhamdulillah, it works out.
And there's no concept of money or, engagement, right?
In Islam, no.
And let's say someone decides to even do that.
It's fine, you can get engaged.
But there's no what exactly would the point of that be?
We just want to be extra white. We're gonna get an engagement ring, nice white dress. We have to also come on. That's to nahi karna, yaar. We need to have some of the things too. Someone came to me my neighbor had a Christmas wreath. They thought that was on my house. And I was like, no, Mufti Wasim hasn't gone that liberal yet. Oh yeah, that's one of my points in for next week. You gotta get premarital counseling. You have to. I don't care if you guys are Aladdin and Jasmine. You have to get. That was a good relationship. They worked out. Yeah, they did. He stole from her. She accepted him. That's a very forgiving woman right there. Aladdin's actual name is Alauddin, by the way. And Jasmine is Yasmin. And what is that? Alibaba? Aligra? What is it?
That's Ali.
No. Agraba. Agraba. It's actually Aqraba. An Arabic word. It's Aladdin is actually a story from 1001 Nights. Alf Layla wa Layla. There was a princess. She got married to a king. She really didn't like him. So every night, to avoid him, she started off with a story. And 1001 nights went by like this. And this is one of the stories from there. I read the actual Arabic version. What was the question? Someone asked a question. Premarital, very important. 60% of people who got divorced said they had no premarital counseling. And studies have shown that premarital counseling reduces divorce. Think about it. You learn, before you go to any work, job, task, anything, you learn about it. Why is it that when it comes to marriage, the only thing we need to learn is how to make a roti round? Or how to make some money. That's it. That's all parents teach their kids about marriage. What are the actual challenges and struggles and problems? Parents don't communicate with that with their kids because they're thinking, dude, we have problems of our own marriage. What advice am I going to give this kid? I got my own set of problems. So premarital counseling is very important. Make sure whatever happens, you do at least 4 to 5 hours of it. And it's actually fard. You see, the Prophet ﷺ said, "Talab al-ilmi farida ala kulli Muslim." It is an obligation to seek knowledge on every believer. When you're getting married, to learn the rules of marriage and divorce is fard on you. It's obligatory on you. Because how can you fulfill marriage if you don't know what it is? So I think you have to get it done.
I have a question. So if you do Nikka now and then Wasim later, are there any limits like with Nikka? Because like I was talking to my dad.
Expiry limits?
No, like
Between you two.
between
Oh, okay. I think I meant like limits. I was like, it's not like stocks. I can just put an option there. If he earns 40,000, 60,000, I'll marry him. If he doesn't, we'll drop this one.
No, because I was talking to my dad about it, and he said that like it's better to just get your Nikka and Wasim done at the same time, and then he's like, I don't know if it's just like Pakistani, it's like sharam kibat, but
Yeah. If you're like Desi, then it's sharam kibat. If you're Muslim, then it's normal kibat. Right? Then it's halal for you. When you're married, your nikah is done. That is your spouse. You can go on dates. You can go on Valentine's. You can go to the moon. You can go wherever the heck you want. Right? That's fine. Now, if your parents are like, no, don't do it. Okay, just be smart. Like, you guys are acting like you never snuck out before. Right? Like, when it's halal, you guys are like, how are we going to do it? When it was haram, it was like, oh, yeah. We're at the library. Everyone's like, my kid is, everyone's parents are like, my kid studied so hard this semester. Every night they're awake. They don't do much the whole year, but the last 2 weeks, Mufti Saab, they got such good results in their scores. I'm like, do dua for Chug. Cheg. What is it called? Cheg. I was like, do dua for Cheg. If it wasn't for Cheg, things would be a lot different. But yeah, there's nothing. Anyone else? Last question.
Do you have any recommendations for further reading?
Any recommendation for further reading? For the boys, there's a book called A Gift for Husbands. For the sisters, there's a book called A Gift for Brides. It's a very good book. It's long. I usually, if I know someone mediocre, I'll give them as a gift for their. I shouldn't have said it like that, but for a wedding. Inshallah, we'll do a small dua and then we'll have Isha Salah right after. اللهم لك الحمد كما ينبغي لجلال وجهك وعظيم سلطانك اللهم انا نسالك الهدى والتقى والعفاف والغنى اللهم اغفر لنا ولوالدينا ولمن له حق علينا يا رب العالمين سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. Inshallah, we'll complete this next week.